Hi, everybody. Welcome to the panel for Local Solutions for Global Impact. We're really excited to be here as one of the last sessions of ASU+GSV, so you guys get the prize for coming. Because it's such, yay! Agree with you a lot, but we have an awesome group of folks here who are going to talk about local solutions for global impact. What was really interesting to me was we kept getting, what does that mean, local solutions for global impact? So think about the 1,000+ community and technical colleges across the nation. And think about the almost 36 million employees of the Fortune 1000 companies in America. You bring that together, and what do you get? You get a skills to jobs marketplace that allows you to connect all of that so that you can have uninterrupted talent pipelines for at least 2-year level workforce. That's what we're going to be talking about today with these esteemed colleagues of mine. We have 3 community college and technical college leaders here with us today, right here on my right. And Amy, Lee, and Tracy with 3 different systems, also part of the Unmuddle Futures Council. On my left, we have 2 of the Fortune 1000 companies that we talked about. Amanda and Robin. They're going to be introducing themselves as we go forward. So when you start thinking about what can Unmuddle skills to jobs approach look like? What does that approach actually mean? How do you get from local to global? How do you think about scale? Everything we talk about here at ASU+GSV has all been around AI and scale, and how do you think about things in terms of hundreds of thousands rather than ones and tens? And that's what we're going to be talking about, is what that approach has looked like. You'll see that there's 3 stakeholders in the work that we all are doing together for skills to jobs. The 3 stakeholders are community and technical colleges, not just in America, but also in Canada. You can add about 125 more. In addition to that, there are working learners who benefit from everything that the relationship between community and technical colleges and employers leads to. Working learners end up with quick pathways that are accelerated, that lead to both credentials credit and interviews. And then, of course, the employers and what they get about it. So the way we have the stage set up is with the employers here, with the community and technical colleges here, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw you into this conversation. So let's make it interactive. And you don't have to hold questions till the very end, but I'm going to kind of seed us and get us started on some questions. So, community college leaders. I'm going to pick on you first. As community colleges, you came together almost 5 years ago and unveiled the plans for Unmuddle to start the work. Why did you think that was important to even start the work back then? 5 years ago is pre-COVID, if you kind of think about that. And then COVID hits just a few months later. So Lee, I'm going to pick on you first because you were the inaugural chair of the Unmuddle Steering Council, Futures Council, that we've gone back and forth on.
So good morning, everybody. So when Parminder reached out, I was at that time the chancellor of the Pima Community College District in Tucson, Arizona. I'm currently now the chancellor at the Foothill De Anza Community College District in the Silicon Valley. And it evolved around solving a global problem. And that problem was, at that time, the 38 million individuals in this country who have some college but no credential. That number has eclipsed 40 million by now, by the way. And so how do we start to solve for that problem? And I was thinking about that in my local community. What's that look like for us? But really, how does it connect to this larger thing? And if we could bring a local solution that would then also be something that could be scaled and replicated on a larger venue, then we're solving this greater problem for our country. So that's what really drew me in initially to wanting to be part of this great organization.
Thanks, Lee. You did take a big risk back then, being almost 5 years ago. And then, Tracy, you followed Lee right in as the second chair of the Unmuddle Steering Council, Futures Council. And you steered Unmuddle from just skills to jobs. That's the scaling that started. What are some of the underlying principles that you found Unmuddle was committed to?
Sure. So as a founding college member, I was excited to participate in an entrepreneurial effort that was going to help my college in central New Mexico, which serves about 30,000 learners. About 5,000 or more are in the workforce development space or training space, but knew that we had a disproportionate number of individuals with some college, no degree, and high school learners. So I knew that we needed to focus on our adults. I also knew that we had some lessons in working with Intel, has a strong local presence in Albuquerque, but certainly has a global reach. We had provided some programming with them. We've helped them expand their operations in Albuquerque. So we knew we had a model of working with employers that was really meaningful. And given our economic development goals for our community, we knew that we had to be, and we're proud to be part of a solution to grow our workforce, which is why I was excited to work with Amanda and her team at Amazon. What was important about Unmuddle was about helping us scale. Take a few models that we've tried and piloted to be able to take it to scale, to work with employers, and honestly have different conversations with employers than we've had in the past. Everybody will tell us in our community we're doing a great job, but I knew we had some gaps, and Unmuddle was able to bring different levels of an organization, not only our local Amazon contact, who's important, but at a national level, help us look at and ask, I'd say, different questions of us to really help us refine and shape how we were going to meet employer needs. What was exciting about Unmuddle is it was giving us a platform, one, to access, I'd say, national leaders and chief learning officers and more, but also to be able to help us tweak and find some technical solutions to help make it really easy for learners to enroll and complete and get a job. Our legacy systems don't allow us to do that very easily, and so I was really pleased to be able to work with incredible community college leaders to help ask tough questions and to frankly iterate some systems and work that we could do to see how we could improve not only our work with employers, but really help transform our institution to, dare I say, be more learner-friendly and more employer-friendly.
Thanks, Tracy. So since 1901, community and technical colleges across the nation, so about 125 years plus, have been already working with employers. So this is really nothing new as far as community colleges working with great employers, whether they're national, whether they're local, it really doesn't matter. So when I'm just wondering real quickly in the audience here, how many of you are educators? How many of you, what fields do you come from? How many are educators? Okay. How many? Okay, about 4 or 5 of you. How about employers? Employers. Okay, couple of you here, and then 2 or 3, actually 4 of you here. Okay, so about the same amount. What is the other
Maybe vendors or
sector that is represented? Nonprofits and associations. Okay.
And some state representatives here.
And some state.
Of apprenticeship standards.
Okay. That's awesome to know. Okay, that gives us a little bit of perspective as we kind of get into the employer relationships. Amy is our current chair of the Unmuddle Futures Council, so third one in as we get to the 5-year mark. And Phoenix has been Phoenix with the Maricopa district there has been always a front runner with a lot of headquarters that come to Phoenix. What is it that's about these employer relationships that you find kind of unique in your community, Amy?
Yeah, thank you for that, Parminder. Well, I think the fact that I'm able to follow in the footsteps of these two awesome leaders, and Stephen Gonzalez, who's the Chancellor of the Maricopa System. He was the seated president at Gateway when Gateway was a founding member. I think you're right. Community and technical colleges typically already have relationships with community partners. Specifically at Gateway and within the Phoenix area, we do a lot with healthcare. And so we have a lot of partnerships with healthcare. And anywhere from faculty to deans to clinical coordinators to the vice presidents and the presidents, we know who our people are at those organizations because we're talking to them regularly because the students are doing early preceptor kinds of experiences at those institutions before they get hired, and often are getting a job offer before they even get hired, or before they finish the program, rather. I think in the spaces that are not healthcare, that's where the really interesting conversations can happen, because I think we, up until maybe 5 years ago, were acting in a vacuum. And we were offering programs to community members to get trained in a technical field and would help them with a resume and a cover letter and some interviewing skills, and then sort of said, okay, good luck, go find a job. And that's really not the best value proposition that we can create, especially if we look at who the major employers are in our communities, have conversations with them about what do they need, who are they looking for, how many people do they need, and that's where the conversation gets really interesting, because sometimes in Phoenix, we would find an employer needed one person with that particular training in 5 years. They were only gonna hire one every 5 years. Well, that business model is never gonna work for a community college. So I needed to then find 19 other companies who needed one person to hire in 5 years to get my cohort of 20 to even make that work. So I think when we talk about scalability and talking to employers that are hiring in large enough numbers to actually move the needle of the value of what both groups are doing, really, adding to the economic value of our community and ensuring that our citizens are employed with higher wages than what maybe community and technical colleges might be known to produce in mass, is really the exciting work. So I think that's where the conversations need to start, and many of you in your own communities, I think, can figure out who those employer partners are that have local presence, but also have national and global expansion.
So I love what you're saying there regarding the multi-location of an employer. So there's the local part where your employer is there, it's your local or regional employer, they work with you all already. Mm-hmm. And then you get to national and international employers like Amazon and like Boeing, and they have multiple locations that they have to worry about, and they have to worry about consistency, standardization, and other things that start coming up for them. How much time do you spend with each institution, with each organization? How much time do you invest in redeveloping curriculum site by site? How do you communicate your hiring plans in a way that it's efficient, can get to the class sizes that you need, and yet, at the same time, be helpful to the local employers? So in regards to two different perspectives here, one where Amazon, Unmuddle, and the community colleges have been working for about 3 years now. Amanda, how do you see the relationship with community and technical colleges, what that kind of vision for the future looks like? You've had an amazing vision from the very start and have been with all of us for so long. That's what we're interested in hearing from you.
Great, thank you. So thanks so much for joining us today. Just by way of introduction, I support Amazon's reliability engineering and maintenance team. So those are our robot watchers, you could say. They're the technicians who keep all of our material handling equipment operational within our centers and manage our controls and mechatronics. So the vision for the partnership with the community college is really focused on scalability and consistency from the learner perspective. So with the partnership that we've employed, we were able to work backwards from our job description and our requirements and make sure that we had course curriculum that directly aligned to the needs of the employer, which is of course a great win for the learner with a more promising outcome at the end of their degree program. It's a great win for Amazon as an employer that we have skilled labor who is that aligns to our specific needs, and it's a great fit for the local community as well. And so my vision, Amazon's vision for the way that we support and upskill talent in these communities is that we're creating an ecosystem. So of course, we would hope that every person who completes the courses that we've built in partnership with this fantastic panel would come and apply with Amazon and get hired. While that may not be the case, but if they go and get hired with, let's say, Volkswagen or Intel or many other high-tech manufacturing employers, we're creating an ecosystem. We're bettering our communities, and we're providing learners clear outcomes to a better pathway.
Thanks, Amanda. What are some of those, just a real quick follow on, what are some of the metrics that you look at when you think about that vision? Because obviously you're responsible for a lot of things there at Amazon.
So I would say from maybe some of the easy metrics would be things like time to fill. So are we able to fill our roles in a quicker time frame post-course completion, post-partnership? What is our applicant to hire ratio? Do we have more talent who is interested in these particular roles because now they have knowledge? And then once they join our team, key metrics would be things like retention, mobility. And mobility at Amazon is very interesting. Of course, we want our technicians to stay with us and continue to build a career. But as we look broader at the ecosystem, if they are ultimately exiting and going to a different location, a different employer where their compensation is increasing, we also see that as a positive, as again, we're providing back to the communities that we support.
Thanks. So Boeing and Robin, you have a really different perspective on all this. You all at Boeing, I'll never forget when we first met, you mentioned that in Boeing's storied past hadn't really brought community colleges together. That you worked with each one individually across the nation, and that's the piece that I'm really curious about with Boeing is how does that work and how do you see that shifting for the future?
Great question. Thank you, Parminder. So very similar to Amanda, I'd like to welcome everybody today. I have oversight for ensuring that our 50,000 global mechanics and technicians out in the production training system have the skills that are necessary for them to be capable and competent and feel comfortable in building our aircraft in our production facilities. There's a lot that goes into it, and to Parminder's point, in our past, we have had some opportunities to partner with community colleges and technical schools in some select locations, but it's been very much a one-off type of an event, and each partnership is being managed locally without necessarily taking a look at our entire ecosystem and what we need on a global scale. It means that we might be doing training or a training pathway that could be similar or exactly the same in multiple locations but have different curriculum, which means it's not optimized, it's not efficient, and we don't necessarily have those folks that are working with their local college that are talking to the one in a different location that we work with even within our own system. And so it doesn't make for the best or most efficient use of resources. And my greater concern as I look towards the future is what happens when those local points of contact from within my own organization leave, take another job, retire. How do we backfill all of that information that they've had, all of that time and effort that they've put into those local collaborations with their local points of contact in those educational communities? How do we replace that? It's going to be very challenging. And so I'm looking at something like this to level us up on a national scale so that we have some standardization and it doesn't affect us as much when one local point of contact does something different.
Thanks. And so you come from the learning and development side, right?
Correct.
Technical training, you mentioned over 50,000 folks that you have to train up. What do you see as some of the kind of like the metrics you'd be looking at? There's the knowledge piece, understand that, especially with retirements on not just the Boeing side, but the college side as well that are starting to happen. What are some of the metrics, like maybe with the lower level training that Boeing has to also focus on in addition to the advanced training?
Sure. So some of the metrics we would be looking at, very similar to Amazon, we'd obviously be looking at what's our time to fill these positions on a before versus after type of a basis if we were to move to this type of a system. But it's also about competency-based training and those outcomes. So we'd want to take a look at how much more competent are the employees before and after having standardized this on a national level, and how much quicker can we get them to the production floor to assist us in building our product and service. And then we also want to take a look at, internally, we take a look at what are our cycle times. So time to build product. So if our employees are more competent because they have skills, then we're likely to be able to build product in less time with first pass quality and safety.
Thank you. So you all here, I am privileged to be in the middle of this. As far as the colleges go, when you're thinking about, these metrics, you probably hear them quite often. Generally, like time to fill is one that you probably hear a lot of, or onboarding costs. But there's also another metric that we've been finding as we've all been working together, is one to do with the administrative burden of actually having to go back and forth between the higher education organizations and the company. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about, for example, some of our advising companies, they come from IBM, Apple, and some others. They had a number of folks who managed higher education partnerships and had to conduct reviews with each of their higher education providers. In fact, I was at Boeing when there was a scorecard that was, working with Boeing when there was a scorecard that they wanted to release regarding which provider was doing the best job as far as universities go. And with that kind of thinking behind it, what is it that the colleges need to hear from the employers to help make this relationship be more efficient?
May I? So I think, so the metrics that we've heard are incredibly important. I think the other measures we would see internally relate to the support, and I'll go directly to what Unmuddle can provide. It's helping those learners stay on the journey. That's one, so advisement, turnaround time, technical time. Early in our process, I'll just be very honest that C&M, we were learning, this is an entrepreneurial effort, it's iterative, and early on we realized that how we manage our credit and our training programs weren't as supportive and responsive as needed to help learners get enrolled, to enroll, to start the class, to manage all the technical challenges of getting online or very technical work to help. So we were looking at other measures that helped us decide this technology was very helpful. When I say technology, the Unmuddle learning platform and all of the supports that are around it, that were surrounded it, that were different than what we could provide. So that's been very helpful for us for looking at certain measures. I would also say a data point that's important for us that we aren't tracking yet, but that we will, that's really critical for our engagement with Unmuddle, is not only that completion, so enrollment, completion, job placement, it's also how do we track and help those learners once they've earned that first credential to stay or get another credential through us or through one of our partner colleges, because we can, through credit for prior learning, help that individual continue on to seek more training or go on to a degree. Those are both very important as we talk about what's the local to global solution. It's very important for us as a local community college to be able to say that our learners are engaging and have a pathway to degree, because we know that over time a degree is incredibly important and still gives a great deal of security and sustainability to an individual. Training is very important, but we all know our jobs are going to be evolving over time. So we want to make sure there's a continuous data point and data points about continued learning, and Unmuddle's helping us get to that point, and our employers will also help us get to that point as well. So I appreciate the closed system that we have. So we have some measures and some other metrics we'll be looking at that will also lead to retention and more. So I look forward to the next steps.
So let me add to that. I think one of the things that's the reoccurring always is that sense of urgency. You need people now, not, oh, we don't start till, June 1st, and it's going to take, you don't need that. So how do we close that gap? Well, it's not possible to do it in our face-to-face static environment. So what if we could create, this is even before Amazon was a partner, how could we take the idea of the Amazon marketplace, make things on demand, and remove all those friction points and get that learner engaged on a pathway to skills that actually lead to jobs, and that we could make it all visible, transparent in a platform. And that's essentially where you start to see Unmuddle come together, right? So you get the sense of urgency, get the mobility, remove the friction points, because it's all about ultimately closing the gap between that learner and that employer.
Yeah, I think one other thing to add is just the continual conversation of the throughput. So if we're training individuals and they're getting jobs at these companies, that then there's some opportunity for us to know how well are they performing in the job that they got,
Yes.
and did we build the right training program that met all of the standards that companies were looking for. And so I think that's just one opportunity to continue the conversation, and it's not uncommon in education that we would close the loop in that way, but I think to be really intentional about it, because to both Tracy and Lee's point, our entire effort is to literally unmuddle this space for working learners.
Yep.
And we are infamous for muddling things up. So I think it's an interesting idea. It's almost like intentionally and clearly blurring the lines, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it really is what I think we're trying to do, is to not be as rigid as we traditionally are in higher education. And that's why I think the community and technical college is the best positioned higher education partner in the local community to do these kinds of things.
Thank you for that. And so just for a little additional context, as working learners complete, they get transcripted. So each of the colleges that the working learner attends has their credits registered with the college, and across colleges they're transcripted in Unmuddle so that an employer can use that record of credentialing, of even credentialing. This is the interesting thing that we're finding, is that the skill course, what we call skillware, becomes the credential. So it's no longer about having to go out and get that course verified. It's already been verified because it's developed in conjunction with employers. So it already gives you the skills that you need. Why do you have to go out and go get somebody to certify that, oh yeah, they did go through the course and they did get the skills? So we're starting to see this division of how skillware is used in order to verify someone's skill set. And that has been an interesting thread that has been coming out. What I wanted to follow that along with was, as employers, you have relationships with these multiple community colleges. You're here, you have magic wands in your hands right now. What do you wish that colleges would give you?
So I think top of mind would be further access to their student body so that we could educate and inform and excite them about the career opportunities that they may not know exist.
Wow, That's a really good one, especially when this wasn't even part of anything that we talked about prior in preparation for this. Robin?
I think it would be along the awareness realm that Amanda mentioned, but more along the awareness of ensuring that the learners know that with these skills, there's the opportunity out there for certain placement. Certain organizations are looking for these skills, and that it's not a wait and hope type of a situation. We want to be able to have that connectivity to be able to guide them in that direction so that it's a clear pathway.
Awesome. So with Amazon now, there's a 22-site network that's being brought up that's for skills to jobs, all around labs. So Amanda, can you talk a little bit about how that progression from online to on-site is what actually reverse engineers from global impact down to local and rescales back up to global?
Yeah, so with our partnership with Unmuddle, we have launched an Introduction to Mechatronics course, a Mechatronics Level 2, and a virtual lab. However, with this particular labor pool, we understand that some learners will do best in an environment where they're able to touch the equipment and do practices. So with our partnership, we've been able to leverage the community college network, which they already have the labs, they have the equipment, and identify community colleges in our key high volume markets to host a in-person lab for these individuals. So that's where we're at right now. That's our key focus for our 2024 goals.
Reverse engineering from scale is a lot different than reverse engineering from a pilot to get to scale. That's something that I think a lot of this pilot type thing happens. I think it's traditional language, actually, especially with the industrialized age. I am wondering what you found as a difference in your thinking from having to think about scale first and coming back down to local impact as a college.
If I may, I think it's made us more aspirational. When you think so large, when you start with a pilot, you iterate up. It's rare to iterate to a scale that I think we're thinking of. When I think about how can we respond to an Amazon RFP to create a class, and then to revise that class or coursework based on competencies. But then that course can be distributed across the world, certainly to other partners with other community colleges to offer. That's a very different way of thinking about it than I'm going to develop a course and then I'm going to wait or hope that Amazon will share with their other pilot, other programs. It's a very different approach. So it really does make us think more differently. It's helped me think differently about our business model, about programming I can do, how I can use my facilities to have, I'd say, on-time lab experiences, to rent to Boeing or Amazon to say, you have 20 learners in this area who need this competency-based lab. How can I set aside class time to figure that out, to then again help individuals scale up? That's very different than saying I have to schedule time, hope they come, and do this. So it really changes the business model, which I think is pretty exciting for us. It's exciting for us as a college.
So when I was at Pima, we took this concept, and as we were building our new advanced manufacturing center, we purposefully integrated a 10,000 square foot lab called the Flexible Industry Training Lab. We have a gantry crane that runs from one end of the building to the other to bring in the kinds of equipment that our industry partners are going to need to train or upskill, reskill folks. And then we can bring it in and bring it out and just move folks through. So we created dedicated space. So it wasn't interfering with our other programs. So I think that came from these kinds of partnerships and realizing we've got to create that ability to be responsive in real time.
Yeah, the thing I would add is, at Tracy's College, they're already offering the course online to the learners, and literally the learners can live anywhere. I don't need to replicate that, But if Phoenix needs the hands-on lab component, then my new opportunity is to decide how can we deliver that in Phoenix to the learners who live either in the Maricopa County region and or are willing to commute a small distance to have access to the equipment that they need to ensure that they're getting the skills that they need. So it creates a different way of thinking about partnering across states, across the nation, across the world, and still seeing that there is value added in the local solution without, having it be a sacrificial situation in any way. It's really an opportunity.
So reverse engineering back, that's something you all do constantly. But yet when you get down to the local level, it gets really difficult to have those relationships that are available to everyone in the community. One of the biggest things I hear is, well, I get Amazon is global. I get Boeing is global, but who's my local contact? Who do I work with here in order to be able to ensure that I'm meeting the demand? And so I think it's on both sides that there's a lot of change in thinking. How does that impact Boeing? And then we'll go to questions here real quick.
Yeah, so I think the point in all of that is kind of coming back to a note from earlier, and that is we can't be operating in a silo. We really need to do the collaboration, the thoughtful, impactful collaboration that's going to create the best outcome for the quadrangle that we have here, which is the community and technical colleges, the employers, the learners, and the community, right? Because we want that to scale up, but we also want it to make that impact in the local communities. And so to prevent this type of a situation from being a one-off type of an event where something happens over here, but we don't know it's happening over here, and we're not managing our resources effectively, we really need to look at this at scale, very purposeful, and very thoughtfully designed.
Yes, I agree. And just one thing to add to that, from a workforce skills development standpoint, I ask myself, what are my local leaders good at? And they're good at engaging with the local schools, having conversations, getting people excited about those opportunities. Where the expertise comes in from a learning and development and a skill up standpoint is developing the course curriculum that we can now take nationwide, globally, to help support the needs so that our leaders can do the work that they can only do locally.
Thank you. We're open to some questions here in the last couple of minutes, if anybody has them. Yes.
Hi there. I'm wondering what kind of models there are on both sides. I come through K through 12 and higher ed, so I know there are things like scholarships and financial aid. I'm thinking about under-resourced communities. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have an Amazon hub there. And in workforce development, I'm working with under-resourced communities who are dealing with a lot of things that are racially addressed, air quality, traffic congestion. We're working on electrified transportation. We're coming to Boeing next. I'm married to a vacuum pilot. So wondering how to make all of this accessible to communities who don't necessarily have the resources to enroll in community college at their own expense. For those reasons, I'm talking to people like trade unions that have a negative position. So answers on either side that I could take to those local leaders that I work with to make this accessible.
So one thing what I would add very quickly, and then I'm going to hand it over to Amanda, is based on the research that we've done, most low-income communities can afford up to an iPhone. And so you're looking at about a $1,250 upper limit. And so pretty much things on and Muddle, things that are created, in the courses created in conjunction with employers fall under that. So an additional, a huge amount of financing isn't needed. We have a pilot that's getting up and running in Denver, specifically with Metro United Way. It's the Mile High United Way, the first Metro United Way in the nation. They are actually creating a fund where they pay the tuition up front, and then when the working learner gets hired,
So when the working learner gets hired after they complete this course with our team, we reimburse their course fee. And we didn't talk about price point, but the price point is very affordable with the clear path to a career that will allow them to continue to build their income and further invest in their education.
And yet at the colleges and all,
I would say in the state of New Mexico, they created a workforce development fund that we actually use to award scholarships to individuals who do that. So that was part of our college's plan to spend an allocation that was given to us. So that's how we chose to do it.
And so we also work with our local workforce development systems. And so if we can get these on the ETPL, then WIOA becomes available access funding piece. And then, of course, in my last community, we had local philanthropists who were willing to also step in and help.
so there's been a lot of innovation and creativity going on. Today, our goal was just to kind of demonstrate how two companies from two different perspectives are working with three different college systems, colleges across America as a way to collaboratively, instead of competing for every single thing, how do we network, collaborate, and get to local level demand being met as well as global. So if you would help me thanking our great panelists here, and we'll be around for questions. Thank you. You're welcome.